Alrighty, traders. This is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Daily Roundup webinar. So, we were just having this conversation in the chat room about the Fed and possibly talking about yield curve control. And why they would do it. And the thing about the Fed is they need to make sure they control the long end and the short end of the curve, and they don't want the curve going inverted. And so, my opinion is with the 30-year, moving higher, but the some of the shorter dated stuff not following, you're going to have this curve that's like really favors the long end, and that's the Fed's going to look at that and go, they're going to try to make sure the market knows that the market can't force the hand of the Fed, where they have been in the past, where the long end of the curve starts to rally, and then the Fed's like, oh man, expectations for higher rates on a 30-year going higher. The market's expecting it. We need to queue up and start doing it. But see, they can't, because they can't service the debt on that on that as it moves up like that. So I think the risk is that they start considering, and I don't know if this is the right moment in time, really, when you start thinking about the 30-year. But I really think that there's going to be a risk soon. Maybe we climb above 3%, which is still really far away. So I don't think they're going to start to go there, but you never know, you never know. Jason says, so why would the Fed come out and claim they want higher inflation, but as soon as yields rise, they try to stop it? It doesn't make any sense. Well, that's you paint yourself into a picture, into a corner, don't you, Jason? Because you're sitting here trying to provide liquidity to the markets to support the economy, if you will. You want inflation to rise, but then again, when yields start rallying too sharply, the Fed needs to step in and make sure they don't go up too quickly, so inflation expectations don't shift too fast. I'm going to tell you, and this is from experience in the markets. Once sentiment shifts, it's like the whole genie in the bottle argument, right? It's you putting the genie back in the bottle is really tough, and that's, you always hear people say, well, the inflation genie jumps out of the bottle, you can't put her back in. But it's that with sentiment too, and a lot of sentiment really drives inflation. If people believe that prices are going higher, they're just going to start raising their prices. I was this is the silliest conversation, but I was this is not a joke. This actually happened yesterday, about 13 hours ago. My son, my youngest son, he plays soccer competitively, but he really enjoys playing flag football. And where I live, kids are still playing sports, and they're doing it. They don't have masks on when they play football. It's the craziest thing. Whatever. That's probably why I live in COVID Central. Anyway, one of the parents had to come from a different baseball game and go over to the football game. Didn't have time to get home to get the mouthpiece, so they always bring like these extra mouthpieces that they sell, and they're really cheap. They're a couple bucks a piece, but because every kid has to wear them, and my friend goes, hey, I went to buy a mouth guard, and they're like, it's $5. And he's like, $5? He's like, man, I was paying $2. last season or a couple seasons ago for these, if I had to get a spare one, and he's like, dude, I only got $2 on me. So let me get one. So the guy gave it to him. And then one of the other parents said, inflation, it's coming. And I looked at him and I'm like, huh. And I was just thinking it's really more of a mindset, but it's mindset now that you're starting to see. It's a mindset amongst just the average person, right? So if people believe that inflation's coming, they will start raising their prices. Everybody, and especially in the world of information. That happens anyway. As you guys know, and I just want to tell you that story. It really doesn't mean much of anything other than I think the Fed will have an inflation problem moving forward if they're not careful. And if we have sluggish growth, right? But higher inflation, that would be stagflation, and that's kind of not what we want to see. So I think the Fed's trying to manage a few different things. Let me point out just a few things on the charts, and just by the way, since Powell is speaking tomorrow, I as I told you guys, try not to get too carried away with what you're seeing out there with in the markets. Here's the S&P. We're obviously testing pretty key support. Trying to develop that head and shoulder pattern, bouncing off support. As I told you guys this morning, try not selling into that weakness because of what's happening tomorrow. So we've seen a bounce here. We've seen a bounce, and the Nasdaq is coming off not the 200-day moving average, but the 618 retracement. Okay. I think Stelio said that's wedge support, which it is. We have the 50-day moving average just below there. You have the Dow, which is bouncing quite nicely, right into what I think is resistance. I think the Dow's holding up pretty well. So we are seeing the market stabilize here. What is driving the Dow? I mean, the Dow is like straight up. What the hell is moving it? I'm trying to think. Here, I should probably just do this. Hold on. There's a FinViz. It's a heat map. Ugh. So Disney, right? MasterCard, Visa, some of these bigger names. It's mostly Disney. I think Oracle's part of the Dow. I don't know. I don't follow the Dow that much, but obviously the market's liking Disney right now because that's definitely taking the market up. But it's obviously the move in the Dow is stabilizing the Nasdaq as well, and you can see the Nasdaq is as you saw is trading heavy. Apple's trying to break the neckline here. Tesla's trying to break down. A lot of things happening, but one of the bigger things that happened in my opinion is the bounce in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was selling off quite aggressively. I mean, that was a hell of a sell-off this morning. I think a couple of guys in our chat room picked it up, down here in the 48,000 mark. But that's got to be scary. If you're a bull on Bitcoin, you're probably looking at it going, oh wow, I don't know if I like that. And so I think while we're below 54,000, I think you got to be a little careful with longs at this point. But the dollar's not doing a whole lot. The dollar is just kind of quiet. It has pulled back, and matter of fact, you can see the euro's bouncing. Actually, the euro's getting up towards its neckline here. The cable's about ready to hit that 127% extension. The Aussie's holding up, obviously, because of everything else, and the dollar's pulling back against, the Canadian, the Norwegian krona, the Mexican peso. The Mexican peso is making a nice rally, but it's getting stopped in its tracks because of the move that we're seeing in the dollar against everything else. So, just keep that in mind. I think this is a lot of position squaring ahead of ahead of tomorrow, because as I tweeted and as I was talking about in the chat room, I mean, well, let's face it, you're dealing with Powell. He's not going to talk about he's not going to be hawkish, right? He's not going to be hawkish at all. He's going to be talking about keeping rates low forever. He's going to be very careful about being I mean, he's got to, I guess, acknowledge that, the economy is doing better than had expected, but he'll say there's a long way to go and rates are going to continue to stay low. That's it. And so as a result, everybody's going to think, okay, this is a green light to continue to sell dollars and buy stocks. That's it. If something happens different than that, we have to be on guard. And tomorrow is going to be a big day. So just, save up your strength. Try not to get in too much trouble ahead of tomorrow. Just be really careful out there, because, the markets are looking for reasons to sell dollars and buy stocks. And I think that they're expecting that the Fed chairman is going to give it tomorrow. Now, here's the thing. This is how the market is positioned, and this is one thing I'm going to leave you guys with. The market is positioned as such, as I just mentioned to you. Fed Chairman Powell's going to be dovish. He's going to give us the green light to sell more dollars and to buy stocks. Risk should be on. If he says anything tomorrow that doesn't follow that narrative, the whole market is positioned that way. That means that if we, and I'm gonna be very, very clear here tomorrow, just looking at this chart, I don't even have to go anywhere else. If the S&P breaks below today's lows tomorrow, whatever he said, the market didn't like it. Does it make sense? Hope that does. Jason said, Blake, do you think ultimately the Aussie dollar is heading back to 90 cents? I think the Aussie dollar is heading a lot higher. Not necessarily today. I'm hoping it'll back off a little bit. I do, because I'm still long, pound Aussie, Euro Aussie, and I'm not happy with the Euro Aussie. The pound Aussie's pulled back, so I'm really not happy with that. But and I sold a little Kiwi this morning about 15 pips ago, so I'm just kind of sitting in that. It's like. But I do think ultimately the Aussie is going higher. I'd love to see it, pull back to the mid 70-cent level before, making that push. But ultimately, yeah, I do think inflation's going higher. I do. And I think that, big dips in these commodity currencies have to be bought. And I'm really, this is a weekly chart. I'm really thinking more along the lines of something like this. I'm hoping. Because I really would love to reload on the long side of these. Buying it up here at these highs when, we have the, copper daily sentiment index is so extreme. Australia, the Aussie dollars RSIs are pretty extreme. You can see the weekly chart is in extreme territories for relative strength. So, buying it up here, it doesn't, from a risk reward standpoint, just doesn't make any sense. But that doesn't mean that it won't happen. Irina says, do you think that he may propose a bond buying program? I don't know. I'm really not too sure what to expect out of Powell, but I know it won't be hawkish. At least I don't think so. Gavin said bouncing Boeing may have something to do with the Dow too. Oh yeah, I forgot about Boeing. Let's take a look. Yeah, Boeing's having a good day. Up 0.5%. It's definitely helping out. It's not hurting the cause. So Let's really quick before I let you guys go. Um, uh, let's look at the Nasdaq, because remember, the Nasdaq's the leader here, and Stelios pointed this trend line out, which I think is really important to just realize. It comes in at the 50-day moving average. Um, a break below this trend line is going to be a pretty bearish event for not only the Nasdaq, but for stocks in general. I am a very big believer that when the leadership goes, it's not positive for stocks. So the Nasdaq has really been the leader, and usually will always be. I'm a big believer of technology, human intervention, or human innovation. And I think tech is where you always want to be if you're really positive on the economy. You just always want to be long tech, so but I believe that if it rolls over, it's the first thing to pull down the market. So yeah, anyway. So I think we got to watch if we start breaching like this, let's just call it 13,100. It's 225 points away from here. Not very far from a percentage standpoint. We're talking another 1.5%. So if we start getting down there, we're down 2% from today. That's going to be, fairly bearish. And I think you have to be really careful with risk assets if that happens. Okay. All right, guys. Jason's like, man, it seems nothing can take down the Aussie at this point. I know it's really strong. That's why I'm very hesitant. The move on Friday hit me, but it hit a lot of people. I don't think anybody was really expecting us to break out. Well, I guess long-term risk bulls are, like it's Aussie's going higher. Of course it's going higher. I just didn't think technically we were going to go higher first. But maybe this move this week will end up being enough to just get everybody long before a reversal. But we have to see it come out of Powell first, and that we'll have to make those decisions tomorrow, not today. All right, guys. Hey, I hope you have a great one. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, by the way, I did want to say one last thing. I mentioned in the chat room, I am going to be doing a Fibonacci Basics webinar. It's going to be a training. It's going to be like probably about I'm assuming a 15-minute to 25-minute training. I'm going to record it, and you guys are going to have it, so you understand the basics of mapping out Fibonacci levels and retracements. It's such an important tool that I use every single day, multiple times a day, that I think you guys will really benefit from it. I'm also going to be using it to attract more people to ForexAnalytix as well. It's going to be dual purpose, but it will be very educational for you guys, especially if you have a difficult time understanding fibs, which is something that I've done. That's my whole career has been basically around Fibonacci's, it seems like, to a certain extent. Anyway, all right, guys, have a great one. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. You're all rock stars. Thank you so much. See ya.